a sense. And we're getting a ton of questions here on social media. And, one question, and this is a question that I have, I'll add a little bit too, from Facebook, Zahed Zia is asking, I'm struggling, it sounds like Zahed's a teacher, I'm struggling on how to perform quick formative assessment in a virtual classroom. For those of y'all who aren't used to the language, formative assessment is assessment as kids are learning so that a teacher can understand how well they've learned the material and where they might need extra help. And I'll extend that question, a lot of the school districts last year had to just go to pass fail because they're like, it's not everyone has equal access. Even now, I'm hearing a lot of teachers are struggling with Zahed's question, or how do I do assessments in a world where I can't proctor them? And this is all happening at the same time that things like standardized assessments are getting difficult to administer. So is there kind of an information gap that's developing because of this crisis?
You mean information about how kids are doing?
About how kids are doing and what they've learned and haven't learned.
Yeah. There may be. I do think that we can help teachers with tools for formative and diagnostic assessment. One of the things we did in California, it's on the CDE website, is guidance around using diagnostic and formative assessments. And we've approved in the state about probably a dozen different formative and diagnostic assessment tools and programs that people can access. Some districts are using them regularly so that you can see where kids are on a regular basis. A lot of them are very short assessments. The Smarter Balanced assessment system has all kinds of formative and interim assessment tools. They're freely available to every teacher, public and private schools, that you can burrow in on a topic area to see where kids are kind of, in domain as well as more broadly. And so we want teachers to get familiar with how to use these tools. They don't require proctoring. They don't require, some special testing context. They just require the time and the tools right there for kids. And then you can guide your instruction accordingly. And they usually scale across the entire K through 8 or 12 scale of progress. And then you can figure out what materials you need to use. The other thing, of course, are formative assessments that teachers would do themselves. And it's a little harder, perhaps, when you've got a video screen of kids, to check for understanding. But you can use the chat box. You can use exit tickets out the door at the end of the class and say, answer this question. Tell me what you understood or what you didn't understand. And begin to get those kinds of tools directly in the mix for the way in which the learning takes place.
And then how would you handle assessment in terms of even giving students grades? For maybe the K through 8 crowd, that's not as important. The grades are a little bit lower stakes. But as you go into high school, folks really start caring about grades, especially as it shows up on their transcripts. It's being used for things like college admissions. Should a teacher think about it, authenticating students? Should they just go to a real honor code? Are there ways to ensure that, there isn't some shady behavior going on, other people taking the test or getting help, things like that?
Well, I do think that we need to be thinking in honor code terms in general in the society and in life. And one of my kids went to college based on the fact that they had an honor code because they wanted to be really in a place that was ethically, organized around that idea. The more we use authentic assessments, the more kids have to sort of produce and defend and explain what they've done and show it, the less you have to worry about cheating. It's kind of like the driver's test in the DMV. You might be able to figure out how to cheat on the multiple choice test, but you got to get in that car and you got to drive with the driver and, show that you can do all the things on the driver's test. Now in New York, they have a higher standard because you have to parallel park as well as everything else. But, it is authentic. And I think the more we work with authentic assessments of learning that kids present and defend, the more you can see that they've really learned it. And I think that's the direction we should be going. It's the direction that the advanced placement assessments, the International Baccalaureate, and others have been going in for some years. In terms of grades, my view is that we should always be honoring the learning. And the goal is to see what you can get to, not privilege people who've had more experience with something who get there faster. So I believe in approach, and this is very well documented in the research, that if you give people the opportunity to get instruction, try an authentic task, get feedback, often using rubrics or other tools, try it again, revise it, that what should count is where you end up in your learning as you've done this opportunity to engage, practice, and improve, rather than where you started. And that makes it possible for kids who started further behind to show the progress, because they're getting the opportunity to iterate. If you think about anything we do in life that is an actual performance, it's through that process of trying, getting feedback, and trying again. And the more we grade like that, the more we actually drive learning upwards for everyone, and the more we close the achievement gap.
I couldn't agree with you more.